Greetings and welcome to Zord's Planetary Space Program episode 14. We had delivered the final supplies for the Eve mission and the supplies to the Dres mission. And we had also, in doing this, exhausted our fuel tanker, which we sent up to Beta Station ages ago. So, this tanker is going to be retired. We are not going to deorbit it, because that would take unnecessary amount of fuel. And we're not going to send it back to Kerbin because that would take also unnecessary amounts of fuel. So we're going to park it in a lower orbit around Minmus. But since we went through all the trouble to bring its modular engines over here, we are not going to retire those. They're going to be reused and recycled. But first we're going to drop the tanker itself in a stable orbit around Minmus, and for that it still needs its engines, and it also for that purpose has a bit of fuel left. So that's us. We are in stable orbit away from any traffic, and now our engines undock and we dock the first engine to this little fuel tank with lots of docking ports on it that we brought those ages ago. And we might as well dock this engine because it's really close and it should be very easy. But it's, oh no, it was apparently not very easy. And as you see, these engines are nowhere near balanced and thus clumsy and takes some effort to fly them straight. But there we go, docked and it's in place. Now, I think it's easiest to undock the gizmo and push it away, and then undock both the engines and fly them in from some distance away. Leaves more room to maneuver, and these engines need a bit of room to maneuver when they're flying on their own. And this whole concept to assemble a craft out of modular parts is, something I've been doing all along, and this is taking it one step further. We're having the modular components and we need to do a specific task. We're leaving the decimated tanker in orbit with a label on it telling me how much fuel it has, and leaving it as a piece of debris. So yeah, we take a number of components, and to fulfill this task, which is to bring them back to Kerbin, we need just a bit of fuel in this case, because the engines have RCS and they have probe cores and they have solar panels, so they have everything they need except fuel. So we just take tiny fuel tank and make it so that all the engines can attach to it, and we have our spacecraft. We're gonna do a fairly usual return. We're gonna do aerobraking and docking with Alpha Station, as we have done like a million times before using the pusher, most of all. So here we are, falling in high speed, watching the moon swoosh by, and we're coming in to do our aerobraking. As I said, this is very standard. This is something I do quite a lot, as you no doubt have noticed. And one of the biggest reasons for me doing it so much is because it saves so much fuel. It's so cheap and efficient, and yeah, as you see, this one has only one of the very small fuel tanks, so it needs to be efficient to get home at all. And also it's actually bi-directional, so you don't have to turn it when you're gonna do your prograde / retrograde burns. You just decide which engine you're using. So we're coming into the encounter, and as always, I'm not quite used to Kerbin's high orbital velocity. So the craft just swooshed by the target, and yeah, doesn't look good. We are out of fuel. But I'm not going to just let all those engines drift in space. Luckily we have the ever faithful, ever useful service ship, which I'm going to use to catch up with the engines and guide them back. So we need to wait one orbit, and then we should be very close, like so. Now, all the docking ports are taken on the engine hub. So we wait till we're in sunlight, because this thing doesn't work in the dark. And we detach one of them, and because the service ship has docking ports in both ends, we then integrate docking the service ship into the engine hub, making them one fairly sane and reasonable craft. And we can still use the nuclear engines. Actually, that's kind of necessary, because if we're going to use the Rockomax engines, it's not fuel efficient enough, I think. So we plan our encounter, and naturally it doesn't suit very well, so we have to wait quite a lot of orbits to get a good encounter. That's the best approach, and we are low on fuel, having only part of the smallest fuel tank. So in the meantime, we launch our crew. These are the guys going to dress. Well, actually it's not the guys, because we're going to use one of the Kerbals on the space station, on Alpha Station. He requested and was deemed suitable for the mission. But we'll launch the crew as we would have anyway, because, well, the only crew launch system I have is the fuel tankers. So we decided that the refueling of Alpha Station is in order, and we stuck a crew module on the top. So now that we have arrived, as usual, the crew module flies off on its own and docks under its own power. And it's a very maneuverable and nimble little craft. There's no problem docking. And then the tanker itself will fly in and dock too. And watch this. Oh, that's gonna be the roughest docking I have ever done. Yeah, just checking the log, see if anything got damaged, and I think everything's okay. So yeah, maybe gotta be more careful. Yeah, so this is the guy who is going to be a replacement crew member for the station. And then we have this guy going during the eclipse. Let's enjoy the view. Yes, enough of that. He's going to get into the command module, because he is going to dress. Yes, here we have them, all of them. So we're going to launch these guys to Minmus, because that's where the Dres lander is located. But they can't go alone, so they're going to use the pusher. You know, with modular crafts comes modular opportunities, or however you say that. So we undock both of the crafts, and we dock them together. And it's maybe a bit too close to Alpha Station for my tastes. But anyway, now we have what looks like, well, a usual normal craft. It's two modules docked together. So we get some distance from Alpha Station and prepare to go to Minmus. So we're just gonna plan our encounter as usual, doing this off camera because it takes a while and it's not very interesting to watch. And the encounter we end up with is not very good, because we end up going through the severe influence of the Mun, and I don't like doing that because it doesn't work out in my experience. And true enough, when we have done our maneuver node, the orbit we end up with looks nothing like the one we were supposed to have from the beginning. So after some extensive maneuver node planning, again, we come up with a trajectory that will get us eventually to Minmus, but it involves going through the SOI of the Mun and then doing another maneuver node after we exit that sphere of influence. So there's nothing else to do, so we just time warp out there. And yeah, I haven't been to the Mun in a very long time, so it's good seeing it again, even if it's annoying. And yeah, the alarm rings, and we had forgotten, or yeah, we forgotten, but we were allowed to forget about the engine hub because we have the alarms, and it is nearing its encounter with Alpha Station. So we just tweak the final and keep one eye on the pusher going through the MUN SOI, so don't lose track of it. So now we are coming into Alpha Station, making sure to not miss this encounter, and sure enough, here we are. Now we have a slight logistics problem as to how we're going to attach this thing to Alpha Station. Luckily, we brought an extra hub with the fuel tanker, and we're going to use this as the new engine hub, because as you see, we're missing one. We don't have one at the moment. So we take this one, and we're going to assemble it from scratch. So we move it to its designated location. Time warp to stabilize the station because it's wobbly. Now those 3 engines sitting out there on their own don't have any RCS fuel either, so they're dead in the water. So we use the station's supplies to refuel this engine, fly it over to one of the 3 docking ports, like so, and we refuel the service ship, which is then going out to the engines that you're sitting there at the moment, and we're going to refuel them so they can fly back. Or, well, we can do this in several ways. We are going to refuel one of them, the one opposite to the service ship, and it's going to fly back on its own. Now we then have 2 engines symmetrical on the engine hub, and we're gonna fly the whole thing into the station and dock it. And after that, it's it's just moving the engines just short distances, and I'm going to do that off camera because it's not terribly interesting. And that is it for this episode. I thank you for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!